What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard Podcast. I'm Zach Hernandez, and this evening I'm joined by my guys Matt Llewellyn and Anthony Perry. We're here to recap the 49ers 37-15 victory over the Carolina Panthers. Matt, I'm going to throw it to you first. What do you make of this win?
Go Padres. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let me talk about the 49ers. It was a good win, man. Like the 49ers went into this game. Everybody was expecting, hey, let the 49ers, they should win this game. The Carolina Panthers are a little bit soft. They had the 32nd ranked offense coming into the game, and that kind of bore itself out. Baker Mayfield looked like not a great quarterback. It looked like Baker Mayfield, but the 49ers defense came out, played well. The 49ers handled business. It was kind of a bittersweet win in a lot of ways, given the injuries that we kind of look at coming out of the game, and we'll talk about those. But overall, a 37-15 win, not bad at all. I saw somebody in the comments saying that Perry looks different. Dude, Perry's haircut is on point right now. I love it. I'm getting my haircut next week, so all this long hair back here, it's going to be gone. But much like the 49ers, man, you trim the fat, you do the shit you need to do, you get rid of the excess, and you look clean. And that's what the 49ers did today. So really good victory. Perry, what's your thoughts, man?
Hey, what can I say? My GOAT, Jeff Wilson Jr., holding the load up once more in the run game. Have to give him a shout out, man. His 4 straight games to police 70 rushing yards. So props to him.
I got to stop talking shit about him because he was really good today, man. Dude, he was so good.
He was good.
Listen,
his cuts were good.
I'll give credit where credit's due. Jeff Wilson Jr. held it down today. No cap, no hate, no nothing. Jeff Wilson Jr. was a stud today. Go ahead, Perry. Continue.
Hey, that's 1 in a million. We get some Matt love for Jeff Wilson Jr. So I'll take that as 1 in a million. Cheers to that. But no, overall, it was just like Matt said, it was a bittersweet game. I mean, Emmanuel Mosley more than likely tore his ACL. And it is what it is. I mean, it's just nothing that we can do about it at this point. It happens. But luckily, it was a big testament to the Niners' depth as a whole. I think having those kind of injuries happen where you lose Nick Bosa, where you lose E-Man, and you lose some other key guys too, it gives a lot of good backup guys reps. And we saw a lot of that today for a lot of the backup guys. And overall, it felt like a very complete game. Aside from the Kittle fumble, which I mean, Kittle and Debo are like the two guys I kind of watch. I'm like, I feel like they're going to fumble. I think it's just because of how they run. But overall, it was nice to see Kittle finally do something in the passing game. He actually got 6 targets. Overall, it was 9 if you take away a couple of the penalties that happened on his drives. But overall, it was good to see Kittle get involved. Jawan Jennings is an absolute fucking beast, man. That guy is just – I mean, I thought it was going to be hard to replace Kendrick Bourne just because of how reliable he was. But Jawan Jennings has clearly stepped up. And I think he's exceeded what Bourne has done for the Niners. And Bourne did a lot. So overall, man, no, it was just a very good game through and through. It was a type of game where you're like, okay, you've had all these injuries. Garoppolo needs another good landing spot just to kind of get his rhythm really going and back into place. And Garoppolo did everything you asked from. There's a couple of drives that I missed. So I don't know if Jimmy had any of the typical Jimmy throws that we see once or twice per game. He probably did. But the fact that he played another game with no turnovers, that's huge. I mean, the Niners could win 10-7, and all you need to ask for Jimmy is to just not turn the ball over. So it was clean football.
I mean, honestly, he definitely had some Jimmy throws. That's one of the things that I took from this game. It's like, man, it was much like last week, right? Where for much of the game, it was close. It was much closer than it needed to be, given that the 49ers were holding a particular yard advantage throughout the game. It took, and again, this is another week where it's like another pick six, another 6 points from the 49ers defense, Emmanuel Mosley, whatever. The 49ers were holding it way too close to the chest today, where they were, okay, we're dominating this team, we're doing whatever, and you look at the score and you're just like, oh, okay, it's 17-9. It's, 10-6 or whatever the fuck it was. But it was another one of those situations where you're like, man, if this offense could just, if you had a different quarterback from Jimmy Garoppolo, this game would be over before halftime. But we go into the half, it's 10-6 or whatever it was. It was a close game, It was a 1-score game. Jimmy Garoppolo missed a bunch of throws. There was the pass to Debo down near the goal line where it was behind Debo Samuel that like got tipped up in the air. The next drive, it was another throw where it was just like the defensive back just missed an interception, jumped the route, got in front of the receiver, missed the interception. There were plays that, again, we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo leaving food on the table. Jimmy left a ton of food on the table today, where there were times, even the completion, there was a completion to Juszczyk on the sideline where Jimmy Garoppolo essentially just like covered his eyes, threw the ball up in the air, and it was a completion, right? Like, again, Jimmy is not, this offense is succeeding in spite of Jimmy. The defense is so good in spite of Jimmy. The much like the Rams last week where Talanoa Hufanga intercepted the ball, took it back, pick six, whatever, 24-9. That's the end of the game or whatever. The 49ers offense, again, was like pretty pedestrian, and it took a pick six from the defense to really separate the game. I'd like to see more from the offense. And I know that there are people that are like, well, Kyle has to, at some point, the offense has to execute. I thought Jeff Wilson was great. I thought that Tevin Coleman, by God, Tevin Coleman, 1 yard in a cloud of dust. Had
Tico Na, right? Tico Na.
Tico Na. Tico Na. He had 2 touchdowns today, I believe. Played a really good game, but the 49ers overall were playing with their food today, and they won 37-15, but it could have been over way before it was. And my worry is that once we get past Atlanta next week and we go and play Kansas City at home, go into the bye, play the Chargers at home, there's a danger of playing with our food where the offense just isn't able to just put away opponents. That worries me. They played really well today, and it was a game where, hey, man, this team was obviously better than the Panthers, right? Like, there wasn't a huge danger of the 49ers losing today, but the way that they put away the Panthers, man, they probably could have done that a little bit easier than they did, and that's what worries me going forward. Zach, what do you think?
I'm sorry. I see somebody in the chat that's saying this is another Jimmy Hate podcast, unsubbing by, and who said it here? Emiliano. Criticism does not equal hate, and that's exactly what this was. Criticism. Perry, you came out saying this was a Jimmy turnover-free game, and it was a efficient game from Jimmy Garoppolo, and Matt saying that he left a lot of food on the table, a lot of meat on the bone.
We can all agree that Jimmy played pretty well, but that there was stuff left up on the board that Jimmy could have done better.
On the same token, there's a couple of interceptions the Panthers dropped. A couple. So I'm not bashing Jimmy. I think this was a good performance from him. If we get this Jimmy every week, the 49ers are like going to the Super Bowl. I mean, this is a very, very
it's a playoff. It's a Super Bowl team. Yeah, Jimmy playing like this Jimmy is a Super Bowl. And I texted the chat afterwards. It's just like, hey, can anybody get the ESPN stat boy on the record for saying like, hey, what's Jimmy 2 games in a row, back-to-back, no turnovers? Like, what is the precedent for this, right?
Yeah.
We'll take this for sure. But let's not pretend like there wasn't stuff left out on the field, right? Yeah. And part of that is not Jimmy. George Kittle had that fumble on the drive, right? That like was completely on George Kittle for not tucking the ball away. I thought that George was a little bit better overall. George was targeted like 10 times tonight. He had like 4 or 5 catches, but it seemed like this is one of those things where people like when Kyle doesn't have the killer instinct, right? But like Kyle targeted George like 10 or 11 times. And for me, it's like Kyle can do whatever he wants. He just decides what he wants to do. And today it was like target George Kittle. This is our game plan today. We're going to target George Kittle.
His birthday passes, birthday presents.
Exactly. And the fact that he can do that tells me that Kyle is still the genius he is. It's just Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's what you got to worry about. And going forward, that's going to be what's going on. And I would like next week to be a little bit more of the let's get Jimmy Garoppolo ingrained into the game plan for this year, right? Versus Atlanta, who doesn't have Cordero Patterson, who's on IR, who has Marcus Mariota, who's not really that good. An Atlanta team that a completely horse shit roughing the passer penalty against Tom Brady today.
Really bad. Really bad.
Notwithstanding, that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. That call notwithstanding, an Atlanta team that's not very good at all, right? You want to see the 49ers come out, continue to do what they're going to do, get ready and get prepared for the Kansas City game that's coming up. That's a very important game. That's very important to the 49ers season. You want to see that happen. At the same time, you got to understand that despite the 37-15 game today, Jimmy Garoppolo left so much food on the table.
Yeah.
Could feed a small country leaving it on the table.
Prior to the pick six, it was just like Monday night, way too close of a game. We were thinking, oh, shit, here come the Panthers. The 49ers are going to do this again. It's like Kyle Shanahan hopes he gets enough plays out of his first 15 scripted plays, enough points, out of those first 15 plays for his defense to just protect for the rest of the game. It's like, Kyle, you need to keep adding to it.
That's what it is, though, right? Like, I was saying in the chat, like, everybody's like, Jimmy, the first drive, 7 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, right? Oh, it's so easy. Like, that's what they're practicing for the entire week. Once they get past that, and Jimmy's got to remember what the plays are and remember how it goes, and Kyle's calling situationally that they haven't practiced explicitly, right, in sequence or whatever, that's when the 49ers get in trouble. And it's so interesting that the 49ers come out, they start fast, and it's just like, damn, dude, can the offense hold the lead? And they were able to do it today because the Carolina Panthers are not good. Baker Mayfield hobbled up. And despite the fact that we had a ton of injuries on defense, the 49ers defense was able to hold up against Baker Mayfield. It's just one of those things where you're just like, man, if this is what it is, where Jimmy Garoppolo first drive, that's all he can do in terms of being uber efficient and effective, and the rest of the drives, you're just like, oh shit, what's going to happen? That's a precarious situation for the 49ers to be in going forward as the schedule gets more difficult, because as it stands right now, Carolina, not really a threat. Atlanta, not really a threat. But then we get Kansas City, huge threat. Bye week, but then the Los Angeles Chargers. No matter what you think of the Chargers, real threat. Dude, Herbert is a legit quarterback, and you got to worry about him. So going forward, it's a huge issue heading into this next stretch of the season for the 49ers. It's just interesting. Anthony, what do you think of the prospects going forward with the 49ers, and what do they have to do to improve to where we can get through the next stretch of games with like a winning record and coming out of it really nicely,
I think really it all starts with the ground game, because I'm looking at the stats now, and Jeff Wilson played great. Truthfully, I still think Eli Mitchell is a better running back than Jeff Wilson, just because he's quicker, and I think he diagnoses faster. The thing with Jeff Wilson is once he puts his foot in the ground and cuts, he's gone, and we saw that speed. But now you have to ask, all right, it's been a few games in a row where Wilson's been good. How sustainable is it really?
That 42-yarder today was really nice.
It was a very nice run. Yeah. Oh, it was a money run. But you do have to ask, how sustainable is that really? And that's not a knock on Jeff Wilson. I think he'll be fine for the most part. But when you do face a team like the Rams once more, who might have a better understanding of the offense, you do get up to the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Dolphins and the teams that are really the money teams. If they take away the ground game, okay, now you got to ask Jimmy Garoppolo to make throws. How can we see that diagnosed, and how can we see that impacted going forward if the ground game isn't working? And so far, I think for the most part, the ground game this season has been good, aside from the Bears game, which I kind of discount. But overall, that's just the big question mark. I think it's either between, can the ground game get going? And if the offense isn't going, can the defense force turnovers? I think those are the two kind of 1A and 1B type things. I'd like to hear what Zach has to say about that too, because it feels like the team, again, doesn't really have any major issues when you're like, all right, this is single-handedly going to kill the team. Like Garoppolo can throw 3 picks, and we're like, you know what? I think we can still hold on, and we've seen that. So you're not like, okay, this is terrible, but there's some other things where you might think, okay, this might pop up, and that's why I wanted to ask Zach about that too, where it might pop up, and you're like, okay, this could be an issue. If like X isn't working, how will the rest of the game be?
It seems like the 49ers, surprisingly enough, passing game has kind of been what's gotten them through the past couple of weeks, or at least the last 2 weeks, because surprisingly, I know Jeff Wilson had, I think, like 17 carries, 120 yards, something like that. But it seemed like the first half, before the game kind of was put away, they were leaning on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm more so than the running game. And I was kind of interested to see that. And for the most part, Jimmy was okay. He was able to move the ball. I know they had a field goal blocked. But other than that, they were able to move the ball well. Same Monday night against the Rams, they were leaning on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm. Whether that's Kyle Shanahan not trusting running backs, we just saw Tevin Coleman get promoted to the roster, and now he had a pretty good game, 2 touchdowns. Is that going to change next week against the Falcons? Maybe we'll see Jordan Mason. I think the Chargers game is kind of the ETA for Elijah Mitchell getting back, if I remember correctly. So the running backs we have right
Trent
now,
Williams too, by the way.
big.
Like I know a lot of people are saying Kansas City, but I think honestly the safe bet for him is after the bye week with that high ankle sprain. So it's probably going to be the Chargers game.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see how that impacts everything without them. But right now, I mean, Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson, and Jordan Mason, who for some reason can't see the field. Whenever he did see the field, he looked pretty good. But Kyle Shanahan, I don't know if he doesn't trust him or what. But I think it's the passing game, believe it or not, that the 49ers are going to need to make sure is cleaned up, is more crisp, is more rolling in order for them to have some success here. Because like Matt said, Falcons, not any world beaters there. But then you got the Chiefs, the Rams again, and the Chargers. Matt, I'm going to throw it back to you. What do you think the 49ers could come out of this 4-game stretch?
It's tough. They had a lot of injuries on the defensive end. Unfortunately, on that play, Emmanuel Moseley made a great play to break up a pass, but when I saw that knee plant in the ground and collapse inward, I was like, shit, that's an ACL. Particularly when he came up immediately and grabbed that knee. And then you have Robbie Gould. He has a knee injury too on the plant leg, the left leg. That one to me doesn't seem as serious, but it could be something the 49ers need to address. Jimmy Ward comes back, right? Jimmy Ward comes back, plays one play, breaks his hand. There are Nick Bosa, groin injury. This defense is now kind of in a situation where now we're getting thin, right? Armstead was already out. Kinlaw was already out. Now you take Nick Bosa out of the game. Drake Jackson's going to have to kind of step up. You have your secondary. Jason Verrett wasn't activated this week, but with Emmanuel Moseley going down, you definitely have to activate him next week, right? There's a lot of moving parts on this defense going forward, and Atlanta is not a good team. It's a team that you can skate by with a little bit of a plug and play, but going forward past that with the Chiefs, the bye week, and the Chargers, man, if you're not careful, you could lose 2 out of 3 games right now, right? There's no reason they should lose to the Chargers or, to the Falcons. But with these injuries and the way that it's coming off, you could lose the Chargers and the Chiefs really easily. And then you're sitting at, a spot where you're 4-4. And going forward, it's just like, man, that's a lot to make up trying to get into the playoffs, right? There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the NFL. The Giants beat the Packers today in London. The Giants are 4-1, right? Before the season, you're like, the New York Giants are going to be 4-1 after 5 weeks. That makes no sense to me. The league doesn't make any sense at the moment, particularly in the NFC. The NFC is historically weak this season, right? where everything is just an even field. But the 49ers are having a lot of adversity that they're going to have to work through just to stay at the top of the pile. And much more so than a lot of other teams, the 49ers have to either scheme or substitute or fill in holes that pertain to their defensive scheme. And given the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo and the offense, particularly Jimmy Garoppolo, aren't able to put up the points that you need to gain a comfortable lead that helps out your defense. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row. There was a stat that went out today that the 49ers defense in 2 weeks has scored more than the Panthers offense did. And that's not something that's sustainable. You have to come out with a defense that can make plays, but at the end of the day, your offense with good field position, with good plays, with good defense that causes punts and whatever else, that offense has to come out and be able to score points, whether it be field goals, whether it be touchdowns, whatever. And they scored 37 today. Granted, fantastic. That means the offense scored 30 points, right? But that's against a really, really, really bad Carolina offense. When you're coming against Kansas City and when you're coming against the Los Angeles Chargers and when you're coming against the Los Angeles Rams, those are games that you have to come out and you have to be on point. And despite the fact that it was an inferior opponent today, the 49ers were a little bit lackluster, in my opinion. So I'd love to see them come out hot, but at the same time, just be consistent.
Well said. I like that a lot. Before I throw it over to Perry, I'm going to go over the injuries just in case anybody happened to miss them somehow. The 49ers, obviously, we talked about Emmanuel Mosley likely tearing an ACL. Tests will be conducted tomorrow morning to confirm that. Jimmy Ward, like Matt said, on the very first play of the game, apparently his hand collided with the helmet and it broke his hand. Nick Bosa left the game, I believe, in the second or third quarter with some groin tightness, which he apparently entered in the game dealing with, and it ended up just being too much. They held him out. Robbie Gold suffered a knee contusion on a second long kick return that the 49ers allowed. Diamador Lenore had a wrist issue, and Jeff Wilson Jr. suffered a shoulder injury. Both the latter two did return to the game. So we'll see how these injuries play out going into the week. Matt mentioned Jason Verrett. We'll see where he is. Hopefully he's able to return. That would be perfect timing if for some reason the comment says, Matt, have you ever gotten compared with Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? Because you sure sound like him.
Bro, this is still a team that's 3-2 that has great prospects going forward. I'm just keeping it real on the fact that the 49ers in the last couple of weeks have played offenses that haven't been that great. And now we're going against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. And those are two teams that absolutely will bring the offense to you. And you don't have to worry about, oh, will Justin Herbert show up? Will Patrick Mahomes show up? Those teams are showing up, right? I absolutely think these are winnable games for the 49ers. If the defense plays the way that we know they can, we just need the offense to match that. If the offense can match the defense, bro, this team is probably the best roster in the NFL. If those things happen, this team 100%. Is the best roster in the NFL.
Yep.
And that's the issue, though, right? Is Jimmy going to be? Jimmy had for Jimmy a phenomenal game today, right? But Jimmy needs to have a game that's like phenomenal for the NFL. You know, he can't be 16 of 34 for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns against the rest of the NFL. He needs to be 21 of 26 for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I should know. I went against Josh Allen in fantasy today, and it hurts my heart. But I know what an elite quarterback looks like, and if the 49ers can get elite quarterback play out of their quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of the season, they're going to do well. So. And not Eeyore. The team is good. They're first place in the NFC West. Like, let's make that clear.
Yeah.
They're clearly the best roster in the NFC West.
And the other 3 teams in the NFC West all lost today. So the 49ers sitting atop at 3-2, everyone else 2-3. Also, just to add on real quick to Matt, elite quarterback play shouldn't be hard considering most of Jimmy Garoppolo's duties are just to dump it off 5 to 7 yards above the line of scrimmage and let the receivers do the rest of the work. Perry, I want to ask you this because we were getting into it kind of in our own chat, not me and you, but me and a couple other guys. I saw some people tweeting this. How do you feel about Kyle not going for it on 4th and short? He ended up punting, and I saw people like David Lombardi saying that therefore caused Emmanuel Mosley to be injured because Kyle Shanahan therefore had the defense go back out there by choosing not to go for it. Is that an argument? What do you make of that?
It's any given Sunday. Anything happens. It's injuries. You know, the Niners have always had really bad luck on turf anyways, so granted that, but it's, I mean, you know, if the Niners had gone for it on 4th down and Deebo Samuel breaks his leg, then you're like, oh, well, then why'd Kyle Shanahan go for it on 4th down? Like, you can play this game back and forth all day long. The most you can argue, because when was it, the third quarter, right? It was the third quarter when that 4th down attempt happened?
I think so.
So at that point, you're like, because Kyle Shanahan, we've talked about this in the Niners chat for a long time. Kyle never sits starters, ever. And the one time he's asked about a couple years ago, he said, well, I just think, you know, I can't take any chances and they're starters for a reason, so they should be getting their reps. So I was like, okay, it makes sense. So Kyle's not going to sit starters until it's 2 minutes left in the 4th, and it really doesn't matter. So you can play that kind of game all day long in regards to it. Oh, thanks. You can see me now. Chat comments aren't hiding me anymore. No, you can play that game all day long when it comes with these kind of injuries and whatnot, but it happens. It's circumstantial. It seems like ACLs, MCLs especially, are happening all over the league, period. And Matt said it earlier, it's just a weird year for the offense, for offenses and NFL teams as a whole. I mean, the Giants won, the Packers lost, the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants, the entire division is crazy right now. And there's all kinds of storylines you can pick and pull and think like, wow, this is just a crazy NFL time. And that comes with the injuries as well. I mean, shoot, we saw all kinds of crazy week 1 injury ending seasons. Now we see it happening with quarterbacks too early on. And so it's just, it happens. It's part of the game. And I don't think there's much you can do about that. So no, I think it's a stupid argument. And it's a typical David Lombardi thing to bring up something so negative in that instance. I mean, if, you know, I don't want to get in further detail about Lombardi, but we get the understanding of how he is and the way he goes about his business. So, you know, it's just, what can you do, you know? But I do want to jump onto the topic Matt was talking about real quick in regards to the offense scoring points, because I think that's actually a big issue, is that the Niners can almost, minus Denver, can almost guarantee you 18 to 24, which is fine. I think for the offense alone, that's fine. But when you do face the Chargers and the Chiefs, who will put up 30.5, that is terrifying. And mind you, the last time the Niners offense even scored over 30 points was against Atlanta last season, week 15. So it's a lot to ask for the Niners offense to even drop 30. And they were able to do it today. I was really shocked. But let's be honest, Carolina is not a good team. They have good pieces, but Matt Rule's a horrible head coach who should and will get fired tomorrow. Mike Florio was reporting on that. And then you got the Falcons coming up next week, who find amazing ways to lose. So they're just kind of a couple of those teams when you really do have to discount them. And then when you come into the Chiefs situation where Mahomes is on fire, they lost Tyreek Hill, but it seems like they haven't lost a beat as a whole. They will absolutely drop 30 points minimum for the whole game. So I think as an entire collective, you really have to ask Garoppolo to go out there and throw 3 touchdowns. If he picks one ball, that's fine. But he has to be a 3 touchdown guy minimum for the Niners, just even, you know, hold their own against the Chiefs and the Chargers. And that's the thing. Matt was kind of leaning into that point too, is that it doesn't matter who their playmakers are. They are still Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. They will absolutely find any ways to torch you possible. So you got to ask for Garoppolo and that offense to get 30 points minimum. But at least we saw today that they have it in them. In the second half, the Niners were really able to press on offense. But now you got to hope they do that 3 or 4 more times when it matters. And maybe it's nice and kind of lucky for the Niners that 4-4 might suck, but that also might still be first place in our division. So that's a big break through and through, but that's not the ideal scenario. So you got Atlanta, Kansas, and LA coming up. If you come 2 out of 3 with that's excellent. You can afford a loss. But if you're losing to the Chiefs and Chargers and then that happens, you're going to question, can the Niners hang with the big dogs? And although the NFC doesn't have that, when the playoffs come, it's different football. So you got to see, like, do the Niners have that dog in them to really go and execute? But I have confidence in the team right now. Maybe it's because we're riding the Carolina high, but it's just, it's one of those things where we're going to talk about it now. And then 3 weeks from now, when they don't do it, now it'll be like, this is what I fucking said. They needed to hold their own against these guys and they couldn't. So it's a big point. I know I kind of inverted off the injury thing, but it's fun, man. Niners football is kind of relevant again for us, which is nice.
It's wonderful. There's this clip I just saw about George Kittle speaking about kind of the turf, and I just wanted to share it and get your guys' thoughts on it. I'm pulling it up right now, courtesy of NBC Sports Bay Area.
The thing that just confuses me is, like, if you're going to go from grass and if you're not going to mandate grass, then why aren't all turf fields the exact same turf? So the guys get used to playing on the same turf everywhere, but every field has a different turf. And so it's just like you're playing on a different surface. Like, NBA guys don't play on different wood. Like, what are we doing? Like, hockey guys don't play on different ices all the time. Like, it's ice. So, like, I just wish we played on a surface that was similar every single week in and week out, so your body wouldn't just be dealing with different crappy turf.
So the only way I have to refute that, because I've been thinking about this all day with that, is being a part of the grounds crew for the Giants. We like have turf talks all the time when we're just talking about the grass, and we just talk about different baseball fields. When it comes to football and the outdoor stadiums, especially, there's so many different climates that make it hard to work with grass. And also maintaining grass is very expensive. It is a really expensive process. Whereas turf, I mean, if you were playing on grass and the Jets and Giants were sharing a stadium, that turf wouldn't last a week. So that's the reason why they more or less have turf to begin with. I do agree that in the real world, I wish every NFL stadium could lean towards grass more, but you're asking a lot from the climate. You're asking a lot from groundskeepers as a whole just to fill new jobs and be able to execute properly. And you look what happened with the Bears week 1. They had brand new sod and it wasn't even able to handle the rain. And then their stadium also has poor drainage too. So you stack these things on top of each other and it's just a disaster. So yeah, I agree with Kittle. And then maybe Matt can attest to this a little bit too from watching baseball also. But it's a lot harder than it seems to really go between grass and turf. And the reference between playing on different ice rinks and different basketball courts, he's right. Like, the surface is the same. But at the same time, too, like in baseball, for example, there's still 2 turf stadiums left. And I know they're different sports, but you don't hear about players complaining about the turf at all. And I know it's an injury-related thing, but you kind of just have to deal with the hand that you're dealt, especially in football. And there's just not much you can do about it. It's a really murky situation to tread water in, because of the way teams and organizations handle turf versus grass. And I saw some people on Twitter today saying the NFL Players Association needs to come together and do something about it. Well, it's not going to be easy to try and get however many stadiums that already have turf to make that transition, because it's a huge science behind it. So that's just my kind of refutation against his argument. But I wish every stadium would go to grass. It's brutal to see. It happens every year, and it is preventable more often than not. But, it's just some people are saying that organizations are just cheap and lazy, and I don't think it's necessarily that, but it's a lot to maintain too.
I don't think it's necessarily cheap and laziness.
Right.
I think that it's just, it is a certain point where it's like, okay, what's the most cost effective for what we're doing on the field? But like you said, there's a lot of sports where this is not an issue. You said NBA, but I happen to know for a fact, just talking to NBA players and people in the NBA, things like that, where each home court in the NBA, that hardwood is a little bit different. The ball bounces a little different. The rims are a little bit different, right? Like whether it's Golden State or somebody else, there are strategies that you use for each NBA stadium because they happen to be a little bit different, right? That comes more on a micro level with the team. Like, okay, this is what we're playing. We're playing in Utah today. This is how the rims are in Utah. This is how the court is in Utah. This is how the ball bounces in Utah. There's a lot of difference, right? yeah, the basket in every stadium is 10 feet, and that's what it is set up, right? But the bounce off the wood itself, the rim itself, right? Like how much do they tighten that breakaway rim, excuse me, that that you dunk on and whatever else, right? There's a ton of different factors. What does the background look like in the stadium? Is it colored? Is it black? Is it something that like I don't have to look at? It's similar to baseball, right? Like what's the batter's eye look like? Baseball and basketball are very similar in that, if you're at the corner and you're trying to shoot a three, like what does the background look like to that? Is it something that like I'm gonna be distracted by? Is it something that no problem, I can just throw it up and it's not gonna bother me at all? Right? There are different aspects to this that make a difference. And much the same the 49ers going forward, where the 49ers today, not really a big deal, right? Like Carolina's not that good. You can throw a little resources into Jeff Wilson. You could throw Tevin Coleman had 2 touchdowns today coming off the street, right? Nobody else was lining up to sign Tevin Coleman. Nobody was lining up to be like, fuck yeah, man, we need Tevin Coleman right off the bat, right? Like the 49ers were able to sign him basically out of nowhere and put him in the game, right? Like, who cares? Tevin Coleman's going to be running back number 2 today, but he was able to catch one out of the backfield for the touchdown. He was able to run one in for the touchdown. It's more the scheme than the players itself. And that's where I'm like, man, like, it doesn't matter what the gym is. It matters what the play style is. Kyle's doing a good job, but my problem is going forward. Yeah, that Tevin Coleman touchdown off the pass was great, but it was like 8 yards. Tevin Coleman running the ball, great, 4 yards. Against a team that's more established, more dominant, more able to keep up with the defense that the 49ers are throwing on the field, particularly with the injury to Emmanuel Mosley, Nick Bosa, groin, ACL, whatever have you, right? If the 49ers are throwing up 17 to 20 points a game, can they keep up with the Chargers, with the Chiefs, with these other teams? Do we go through the middle of the season going like, damn, dude, I wish we had something just a little bit extra on this offense to help us going forward? Is that going to be a problem? Because it's easy to look at like an individual player and go, damn, Tevin Coleman had 2 touchdowns today. That's fantastic, man. But is that going to be able to be continued forward through the next week? Right? Is Brandon Ayuk had a good game today. He had 3 or 4 catches. He had, 70, 80 yards. Is that going to be continued to go forward next week? Because this week, Deebo Samuel, not the most effective, right? George Kittle, 5 catches, 72 yards or whatever it was, but he also had the fumble. Is that the most effective, right? At some point or another, this dominant San Francisco defense is going to need help from the offense, right? We've done our part. We've turned it over. We've done this, right? Expecting the 49ers to do a pick 6 every weekend is a little bit unreasonable. So going forward, what's going on with the 49ers? What's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo? Can they bring this forward, right? There are definitely phenomenal aspects of this offense, but it all ends with Jimmy Garoppolo, number 10. What is he doing? How do we bring that forward to get some victories while we can get them?
Go Padres.
Also go Padres. Yeah. That's dude. That game tonight, amazing. I love it.
Check
also,
your ears. Check your ears.
Fuck the Dodgers. How about that?
All right. I'm going to ask you guys one thing you've been surprised by pleasantly 5 games into the year, and one thing you want the 49ers to improve. But before I do, we got to thank today's sponsor, which is Mybookie. Shout out to Mybookie, guys. We all love betting on the NFL. We all love winning some money. Well, you can do it right now with MyBookie. There's a promo code on the screen. All you got to do is head over to Mybookie.ag. And when you sign up, enter in promo code Hive, as in 49ers Hive. You guys pick winners. Why not get paid for doing so? You can bet on single game spreads, money lines, parlay multiple picks together to increase your payouts. I was very, very close to hitting on like a 5-game parlay this morning, but the Jags just decided it wasn't for me. MyBookie has low contest entry fees, over $500,000 to be won. Make it so you don't have to be a pro gambler to have some fun. You might be asking me, Zach, how do I get started? It's super simple. Head over to mybookie.ag. And like I said, enter in promo code HIVE, H-I-V-E, on your first deposit of $50 or more to secure a double deposit bonus. That's promo code HIVE on your first deposit to get it matched 100% dollar for dollar, all the way up to $1,000. MyBookie is a proven sports book that makes it simple to bet and simple to win. So guys, make this your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. All right, Perry, I'm going to start with you. One thing that you've been pleasantly surprised with this 49ers team 5 games into the year.
I actually, with the team as a whole, I was going to shout out one individual, but I can't believe how solid Tashawn Gibson is. He is just such a, he's like the perfect 80 overall safety in Madden, when it's like, all right, he doesn't do anything like excellent, but he can step up there and execute when needed. And he's been doing that very well. And I think for what the Niners defense asks, especially D'Amico Ryans, when a lot of it now has been a lot of single high, because we used to see the Seattle cover 3 over the years. And then D'Amico and Scott in our chat talked about how last season he saw a lot more single high and man coverage. And we've seen that a lot more this year, I feel like, too. So being a single high safety is not easy to hold down. I feel like Gibson's been doing that very well, albeit we haven't seen the Niners give up many big plays. So I don't think Gibson's been fully challenged yet. But overall, I've been very and pleasantly surprised with Gibson. I think just for the safety position and knowing what you have to do, he's done very well. I think he's 31 or 32 years old. So he's kind of on the other end for a safety's age. And we see him executing very well. And the thing is, this guy's name doesn't get called on a lot. And that's a really good thing. So of the entire team's successes as a whole so far, and especially what we've seen from other role-playing guys like Jeff Wilson Jr., like Hassan Ridgeway, or even Kevin Givens, I think I got to give Gibson a little love, man. I've been very pleasantly surprised that he's just held it down so far, and you couldn't have asked for a better safety to step in. So that's my pleasant surprise. Tashawn Gibson, absolutely. Gibson Island, yes.
Matt, what's your pleasant surprise?
Honestly, Jimmy Garoppolo. We've had 2 straight games from Jimmy Garoppolo, no interceptions, and of course, there's been the throws that you watch during the game where like, holy shit, that should have been picked, right? Like where you're just like, oh no. But at the end of the day, it hasn't happened, and Jimmy Garoppolo for the first time in however long, can we get the ESPN stat guy to come out and tell us when the last time Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown an interception in back-to-back games or whatever, not throwing interceptions in back-to-back game. Jimmy Garoppolo's looked classic Jimmy, right? Like that's perfectly fine for me. The defense is so historically good that it's not a huge deal to me that Jimmy Garoppolo misses some throws. It's just the fact of the matter that Jimmy Garoppolo can make enough throws that the defense doesn't have to do everything. Last week against Carolina this week, Denver last week, Seattle the week before, Jimmy Garoppolo has done just enough to be like, okay, this is acceptable. We can deal with it. We don't have to worry about it. The defense can take over. And so now we're sitting at 3-2 atop the NFC West going into the next few weeks. If Jimmy Garoppolo can play the way that he's playing right now, this defense, these skills positions are enough to be really, really, really effective and allowing us to, hey man, we're gonna take this offense, right? The Rams lost today. The Cardinals. Listen, okay. Somebody sent me a photo of Kyler Murray today. I want to talk I want to talk about this. Kyler Murray coming into the stadium in that lime green mother pantsuit, looked like he raided his mom's closet, put on the pantsuit, right? Like the bell bottoms, everything, looking like just a budget Mountain Dew character. Please, yeah, exactly. Look how tight the thighs are, how loose the ankles are.
Someone said he looks like Hillary Clinton.
I'm telling you, man, it's like a Hillary Clinton. I've always told people this. If this is what fashion is and I don't get it, I'm okay not understanding what fashion is, because this looks like dog shit. I'm looking at this going like, what the fuck is this going on right now with Kyler Murray? If that's what this is, I'm okay with it. The 49ers can come in. They can beat the neon green out of this motherfucker. Like, it's going to be great going forward. I think the 49ers are in a very good position going forward to, even if they don't beat the Chiefs, I feel like they're going to play them tight. They're going to play the Chargers tight. This is a top 5 roster in the NFL. When you go top to bottom, left to right, you look at the depth chart, you look at everything going on. The 49ers have one of the best rosters in the NFL. Even if they don't win these next couple of games that are going to be really tough, right? Atlanta is infinitely winnable. They should win this game, right? We should go into Kansas City and Los Angeles 3-2 at the very least. Beyond that point, if you play them close, you're right there, right? This is one of the best rosters in the NFL. They're going to be right there for the playoffs. I think that you just have to continue to do the fundamental things that you do well, regardless of the injuries, regardless of what's going on. You have to maintain the scheme. If you can do that, you're going to be all right. Nick Bosa, I don't think it's as bad as what Joey is going on. Joey had to have surgery. I don't think Nick Bosa is going to have surgery. Emmanuel Mosley hurts, but at the same time, think about what's going on with Jason Verrett is going to be able to come off of injured reserve this week and play with the team. So Emmanuel Mosley goes out. You get what you can get out of Jason Verrett. Hopefully it's the rest of the season. The 49ers have enough, right? It's just about, do we have enough? And I think they do.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty bullish on the 49ers prospects going forward.
All right. The one thing that I've been extremely pleasantly surprised with has got to be Charizard, Mooney, Charvarius, whatever the hell he wants to be called. We'll call him what he wants to be called.
Dude,
Mooney,
he's been
Ward.
so good. So good.
Better than advertised. I was expecting a good corner. The dude literally locks down half the field. Like, he's been so damn good. I mean,
he goes no glove. He goes glove.
Yeah.
He goes back and forth. It doesn't matter. He's
extremely impressive. Extremely impressive. And I know he gave up one big catch today, but if I remember correctly, it was either Anderson or Moore. I forget who it was. Pushed off. Definitely got away with one. Ward has been better than advertised. And I'm so happy the 49ers got him, because that was the one weak link on this defense last year, was that secondary. Now it's shored up. I know they're taking some hits with injuries, but it's still extremely impressive.
I do worry about the interior defensive line. What do you guys think about going forward? No Armstead, no Kinlaw. There were times where, particularly with Christian McCaffrey, there were 1 or 2 plays where he was able to get 8-9 yards.
Yeah.
And, the Panthers are bad, right? Like, Baker Mayfield, not a good quarterback. There's not a lot of weapons on the outside. Robbie Anderson is pretty much it for them. Outside of Christian McCaffrey being like a receiver coming out of the backfield. But, even with those guys missing, there was something that I was kind of worried about. Like, going forward, are we going to miss Eric Armstead? Are we going to miss Javon Kinlaw? Where are the holes in this defense? I feel like it's the interior defensive line. I feel like it's going to be on the rush. What do you guys think going forward? Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming up, Patrick Mahomes. where does this team need to really shore up to kind of like fix the leaky faucets?
I think just quickly on the subject, it's nice that the Niners have linebackers that know how to clean up missed assignments from the defensive line. And the Panthers were only held to 64 rushing yards today, which is, I mean, on par with how the Niners defense has been all season. But yeah, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Kansas City is finally having that season when you're like, okay, this is what we were expecting out of him now. And the Chiefs finally have a subpar run game, which previously I never thought they did. And then you're coming into Atlanta where Tyler Algier, and I think they have another rookie too. I think Williams maybe. I forget his name. Anyways, Mariota can move too. So the Falcons overall can move the ball, at least on the ground. It's a matter of just, can the guys hold their assignments and not be able to blow them? And then can the linebackers clean it up? Luckily, I don't think having AA and Kinlaw in is too big of a deal just because of how good the defensive line has been. Will it hurt the pass rush a little? Probably. I think the pass rush might take a bit of a step back, but if you were telling me this last year, I probably would have said like, yeah, this would be an issue. But having Charvarius Ward, man, I mean, for someone who you're asking for a corner who can shut down a receiver for 4 or 5 seconds longer than what's normal if the pass rush isn't there, that's huge. So I think that alone makes up for the defensive line as a whole. So I don't think it's terrible. I think when it comes down to the nitty gritty fourth quarters, when you're asking for one of those guys to make a play, which Kinlaw and AA were very good at doing, when it matters most, that's what's going to suck. Because now, is it going to be Ridgeway? Is it going to be Akeem Spence? Is it going to be Givens? Like, who can we expect on the interior line? That's the key. So it's kind of a Mod Podge grouping of guys at the moment. But again, it's not too, I don't think it's terrible, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do face some of these more run heavy teams or teams that have more dynamic running back rooms or guys that can just shift more. It'll be a little tough. But overall, I don't think it's horrible. I don't think it's that bad. You just got to hope that guys make plays when it matters most. And in the run game, I think that's why they've been putting Hufanga down in the box so much to rush off the edge when he has his little safety blitz to get huge TFLs to stop that kind of thing. So D'Amico's been calling a great game. I think he'll be able to adjust to a fine still with Kosirik. It's just, can it be sustainable? I'd say yeah for now, but we'll see come week 15. But hopefully Kinlaw and AA will be back by then too.
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap, and I think the injuries apparently are a little more serious than the 49ers initially let on. It seemed like last week both were on the verge of playing, or forgive me, Armstead did play a bit last week, but then got pulled out, and then he didn't play this week. Apparently there's fluid in the same knee that Kinlaw had surgery on, so it's a big mess. And from what Matt has told me about Armstead's injury, it sounds like a pretty big deal to suffer through and to try and play through. So I don't know how long these two are going to be out, but it's literally a huge hole in the middle of that defensive line that the 49ers now are going to have to try and plug with a multitude of guys, which they did all right doing so today. But like Matt said, CMC was able to kind of hobble off 6, 7, 8-yard carries here and there against a really good running back like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like even Austin Eckler. I'm definitely concerned in how this defensive line handles that. We're going to be wrapping up, but we have a super chat that we will take, and then we'll wrap up. Freddie Gonzalez, you guys think we beat the Chiefs? Who wants to go first?
Matt goes first.
I think that's a tough ask, given everything that's going on with their injuries and everything else. I don't want to say no, because everything in the NFL is every given Sunday, something can happen. But given how the Chiefs have been playing, Patrick Mahomes, the way Andy Reid has been calling games, the fact that the 49ers with Emmanuel Mosley, with Nick Bosa, if he's going to come back, all these issues, it's a hard one. It would be very, very opportunistic for the 49ers to do that. It would be very wonderful for the 49ers to do that. But I would say if you're going into that game and you're looking at the 49ers and the talent they have versus the injuries they have out, I would probably lean towards Kansas City probably winning that game. No offense to the 49ers or anything like that, but if we're being real, Kansas City's just humming right now, and the 49ers are coming off a week where they've had a ton of injuries on the defense. So I would probably say for Kansas City right now over the 49ers.
What do you think, Perry?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Matt. It's gonna be one of those, like, if I'm gonna pick a game for the Niners to lose this season and feel kind of comfortable knowing that they might lose, it's the Chiefs. But man, it depends. So Melissa in the chat was talking about the running back rotation, and why I said it needs to be sustainable is because Jeff Wilson really was the only one doing something in the ground today. Because if you take away Tevin Coleman's 14-yard carry, he had 7 carries for 8 yards. And that's absolutely on par with what we've seen from Tevin Coleman, even throughout his Niners tenure. So you really got to hope Eli Mitchell can come back. I don't know if he's going to be back for the Chiefs game. I don't think so. I'm not too positive about that, but either way, it's a little scary, So you're asking for a lot of things to really just break right for the 49ers, including turnovers, including making plays. Who's going to be the electric guy on the offense? And we know Kittle and Debo are those guys, but it's just you watch them sometimes and it's like where is it? You know what I mean? Like, where is that one big play when you're like, holy fuck, like that was insane. And like Debo's play against the Rams, it's like, yes, that's it. But it feels like we only get one of those a game and then that's it. And whereas when the Chiefs have Kelsey, it's like, okay, you expect the guy to do something every snap. So you got to kind of hope that the Niners offense can break that way. But man, beating the Chiefs, it's a big task. I was kind of trying to sneak the MyBookie spreads right now just to see. Obviously, they won't have the Chiefs up yet for the Niners, but it's that kind of thing where I'm like, okay, like let's just see. Maybe the Niners get some lucky injury breaks to get some guys back. Maybe the Chiefs get some bad injury breaks too. It's any given Sunday. So overall, I think the Niners need a bit of luck. But at the moment, just because Andy Reid and Mahomes are who they are, I got to give the edge to the Chiefs. And that's not by much either. It'll be like the Niners lose by like 5 or 6, but the game was much closer than that.
Yeah, man, this is tough because I really do believe in the 49ers, but the offense just scares me. And looking at the Chiefs, they've played the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Colts, and the Bucks. None of these 4 teams have a defense like the 49ers. That's the only reason why I think they might even have a shot, to be honest with you. And it might look something similar, unfortunately, like the Super Bowl where the 49ers had a lead and they were able to keep Patrick Mahomes in check. But all it takes is 1 or 2 broken plays where the defense misses an assignment, somebody trips, something happens, and before you know it, the Chiefs are up 10 points because they're just that dangerous of a team.
Doesn't it feel like that's the way that it's going to be anyway? With the 49ers playing the way that the defense has been playing in the last couple of weeks, you go against an offense like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to score their points, right? Andy Reid is a genius. Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best. You think about it, and it's just like, man, this offense is going to be really, really good. What you're talking about, offense not quite enough to be going forward.
Yeah.
And you look at Kansas City, and it's just like, that offense is so good. Right? If the 49ers aren't at their absolute best, can they match? And that's where my worry comes in. I don't think they can match. 1 for 1, block for block, route for route, wide receiver for wide receiver, obviously quarterback for quarterback. I don't think the 49ers can keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs for the offensive production for San Francisco, Kansas City. And then you have to rely on the defense. And now we look at Emmanuel Mosley. Tough loss, man. Great play on that pass. Probably torn ACL. We don't have 100% confirmation yet. If I was to say, that's exactly what I would think it was. The knee inward flex, not any forceful contact, but enough contact that you see it just kind of dip in. It's going to be one of the situations where the 49ers are going to have to overcome that difference on the outside. What's going to happen? That's going to be the big question going forward. And what do we do going into Atlanta? it's unfortunate the 49ers have had the injuries they've had. It seemed like this is same old thing for the 49ers. Training staff, whatever else. The 49ers just seem to be one of those snake-bitten teams that just has the most injuries in the NFL, along with the Chargers, who are, habitually just terrible on injuries. Terrible. But the 49ers are right there. So, all things being equal, I think the 49ers have a tough hill to sled given the 49 injuries and the games they're going to miss between Emmanuel Mosley, Nick Bosa, if he misses games, and above and beyond. So it's interesting that we need the offense to play well, but it's at a time where the defense is at its most vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. With that said, guys, we're going to be wrapping this show up. Thank you to everybody for rocking with us this Sunday night. I know it's a little later of a show. We appreciate all you guys. Perry, thanks for joining. All of our handles are on the screen. Follow us on Twitter. Follow RGS Pod on Twitter as well. We're here recapping another 49ers win. Matt, you want to carry us out?
Absolutely. Thank you as always for joining us. It's been a wonderful day. 37-15 over the Carolina Panthers. Nothing to tap your nose and sneeze at in this fall, absolute allergy type season where you're just going to be sneezing left and right. The 49ers have been pretty sick as it goes. Defensively, offense, maybe not as good, but still pretty good. Perry, I want to thank you for joining us. You contribute a lot. Love having you here. Go Padres. That's my baseball thing for the day. We love having you here. It's on to Atlanta. Another winnable game. I want to see it. I love to see it. No Cordero Patterson. IR for that fool. For the 49ers, it's business as usual. If they can go out, control the clock, control the ball, everything else. Absolutely winnable game. So thank you as always for joining us. And until next time, go Niners, baby. Go.